Welcome to this week's episode of the State of the AI Union. I'm your host, Laura, and joined with me today is David Weiss of the Deal Doc, and he is the Chief Deal Doctor. David, thanks for joining us, and please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what the Chief Deal Doctor does.
Laura, thanks for having me, and hello to anyone listening. My name's David Weiss. I'm based in Houston, Texas. I run a company called Deal Doc. I teach people how to manage deals. I'm launching a book called Deal Management, and my whole purpose in life, I get out of bed every single day just to help salespeople sell better, and I do that by helping them understand the fundamentals of all deals, understand where risk lies inside of those fundamentals, and then understand how to color code score your risk and then the actions that you need to take against it. I've been in sales and sales leadership for like 20 years, and I learned, this concept about 10 years ago, and it literally doubled my income. It's more than double the income of everyone that I've taught it to, and it just helps, organizations just, run better, opportunities and pipelines and deals and forecast accuracy and win rates and all those things. So that's me. I'm a geek when it comes to sales, and I love talking about all things sales, AI, blending them together, all that stuff. So yeah.
Love it. David, you've been in sales a long time. I know you just dated yourself there by saying how long, but let's talk about
I don't have a problem with that. I'm old.
yeah, so let's it's actually one of my favorite topics, actually, qualification, and deal inspection. But since this is an AI podcast, one of the things that we had discussed previously is about how you've used AI, and you fed your entire brain into whichever AI system you're using. Which is it, by the way? Is it Anthropic?
So for the longest time, I was a ChatGPT user.
Okay.
And then I moved on from chat more recently to Claude, was specifically when they launched Cowork. The multi-step thought process and the ability for it to break down like super complex tasks into smaller ones and then to give like really like good outputs from that has been like game changing for a lot of things. But yeah, so you asked the question around like my brain on AI. So
Yes.
what I've been doing, really, God, it feels like forever, but it might have been like 3 or 4 years at this point. It may have been less. I don't honestly know. It's really since like AI came out. What I noticed is it really struggled with like memory and things like that. So for a long time, I was taking a lot of my prompts and I was just like dropping them into Word docs and
Hmm.
then using that structured information to then like reprompt with the prompt and the output that I got the previous time. And then eventually, chat started being able to develop, a memory for itself. And so then I stopped doing that and I allowed chat to have its memory. And then when I moved over to Claude in the last like 6 months to a year, I started taking that practice and like getting way more advanced with it. And so when I say like my brain on AI, it's literally every LinkedIn post, I wouldn't have AI write it. I would write it. I'd put it in there, ask it to help me adjust it. Every email that I'd write it first, ask it to adjust it. Every blog post, every transcript of every conversation. Like literally, if there is a recorded document of a conversation or thought that I had, it got fed into AI, first as a Word doc, then as memory, then as the downloaded memory, then, over to Claude as now MD files. And I've literally essentially like trained it on my brain. And the benefit of this level of like I've created like a David small language model essentially.
Right. Right.
And so the benefit of that is like anytime I want to write anything, it has this just vast amount of context of like how I actually write, how I actually sound, the pacing, the thoughts, the feedback, all of that. And it just allows me to like kick out material and content and custom thoughts and responses and everything significantly faster. So like I've spent a lot of time working on that, years working on that, and like the benefits are huge.
So do you think it actually helps you get faster, or now that you have like another David to talk to, it's like a little bit of like a rumination nightmare? People maybe with anxious personalities might be like, well, I got to talk to my AI counterpart and make sure that it sounds right before saying something.
There's maybe a little bit of that. Like I'm still a fan of like starting with um what I would write and my point of view, and then having AI come and like fill in gaps and give me thoughts. And like, it's really cool because I can be like, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Where have I talked about this before? Where have I said that before? How did I say that? And then it's like, well, okay, so in these instances, you've done this. You remember you made this point. This was really good. You should fill this in here. And so it makes me faster because, like, where before I may need to like write a 2,000 word blog, now
Mm,
I can write like 2 to 500 words and then have it fill in like the other 70% contextually with everything that I normally would say. So like that's where it really helps. And I think where a lot of people make the mistake, and I've really been like conscious of this to not like create like AI slop, is having like AI start it and then like make subtle tweaks. I start it and I allow my own brain to make the tweaks. And like that has made a world of difference because it's allowed me to create like what I think is a pretty authentic point of view versus a more generic point of view by just like having AI do all the work.
yeah. So, um, we discussed also one of the points you made was that AI makes experts more efficient, like yourself, but non experts lazy. And more specifically in sales, tell me more about where you're seeing this play out and what happens when a team deploys AI before they're actually ready to use it.
Yeah, so like kind of what I was mentioning before, the to me the purpose of scaling anything, and AI allows you to scale things really fast, is you're scaling what you've already figured out. You are applying automation, you are applying rules to allow you to move faster inside of a system that you already have perfected. When you haven't perfected the system, AI scales really fast, but it scales bad behavior just as fast as it scales good behavior. And so to me, if you are an expert at something, you can feed it your thoughts, you can prompt it, and then you can use the backbone of your expertise to critically think through what you've gotten. And then, essentially, because AI does hallucinate, AI does give bad information, AI does keep things at surface level until you dig deeper or have it research certain topics. If you don't have the expertise to challenge it, to fight it, and you accept it at face value, there's a lot of risk there. And if you don't have the backbone of like years of expertise in a topic or an understanding of something deeply, you will accept it at face value because you don't necessarily know better. And it's not your fault. You just don't know better. And then you think AI has the answer when it really is slop. And that to me is like one of the biggest problems with like a lot of what I see out there is uh, you are using AI to replace critical thinking, and people are using AI to become an expert on a topic. But when AI doesn't necessarily actually have that level of expertise, and so um, I still believe that before you start using AI to scale something, you needed to have figured it out yourself to at least some degree, so you can actually, call bullshit on the things that are fake and are hallucinated or aren't deep enough. And so, like that to me is like the piece. It's like earn the knowledge and then use it to scale, not the other way around.
So, in deal inspection, for example,
Yep.
right? A lot of deal inspection is, well, we're listening to what the customer is saying and what does that actually translate into, right? And do we have all these pieces of information and can we fill out the medpic score, right? And how we listen for that. So a lot of it is judgment because with the same piece of information, you might interpret something differently from, a more inexperienced sales rep, right? So
Yes.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead, sir. Please.
No, I was gonna say, like, in this example, how does AI help the reps that are less have less experience with what to do with the information?
Yeah, so this is like a
How
really
could it go wrong?
salient yeah, this
Yeah.
is a really salient problem. So like let's just and I've seen this play out. So let's just paint like the real scenario. AI is listening to a call. It applies a medic filter to that call. You talked a little bit about numbers. You were talking to someone that had like a title that was like director level and seemed really enthusiastic about the problem. They mentioned that they want to, go live some point in the next like 6 months. They talked a little bit about the problem that they're trying to solve. They mentioned a little bit about their criteria, what they were looking for in a solution. They may have mentioned like a competitor or something like that. And so you're just having this really nice, good, organic conversation. And AI is listening to the call and the output of that call. It's like, oh, this person's a champion. This is their exact decision criteria. These are the exact metrics. The buying process is exactly 6 months. It categorizes all of that data, but that data was loose. That data was like high level, but now it's taking the high level loose data, stating it as facts. Then the rep is like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Would you like to put that, into your CRM? Absolutely. Yeah, AI, put that into my CRM. And now all of a sudden your CRM is populated with meta. And now all of a sudden your deal confidence and deal score looks great. And all of a sudden, it's recommended it for to be forecast at this timeline. And now it's in your forecast. It's labeled as commit. And you know what? Your leaders are looking at it like, oh, great job. You filled out all the medic and everything's good. And then like the deal slips and dies. People are like, oh, hold on a second. What the fuck just happened? And like that is the reality with AI. And I see it all the time, every single day. And that's what I mean by removing critical thinking, because you didn't have a champion. You had a friendly contact. A champion has very clear boundaries. They're someone that is specifically selling for you. They are fighting for you to win and nobody else. It's not a friendly contact. But AI can't tell that distinction because the rep hasn't asked the right questions to get there. But the AI made an assumption because it seemed like a friendly person with a good title. Like, you haven't gotten deep on decision criteria. Did you shape it? Did you differentiate it? Or did you just understand it? AI can't tell those like nuance, like differences between things. It captured a metric, but does that metric even matter? Did you use it to build a business case? Is that business case good enough to justify change right now? Is that pressure tested by an economic buyer that they're willing to sign off and allocate funds to it? Or did you just capture a metric? That's the difference between I have a metric, but it's filled in the CRM, and critical thinking that's a gap that drives an action. When you think about like things that way, that's the difference between like an expert critically thinking about data and data captured for data's sake and outputting an AI super confident recommendation because the information was gathered and fields were filled in. And like that's the difference in this world. And like that to me is something that I'm railing against. People like stop using AI for this. Or if you're going to use AI, don't use it to fill in fields. And if you use it to fill in fields, you better freaking critically think, challenge it, and go back on gaps of data, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of like bad forecast accuracy and a lot of misses that are disguised as like hyper.
So am I hearing you say that you're recommending that that sales team don't use AI for sort of like summary and deal qualification? Um, so then what should they be using it for?
Recommending is you become an expert on deal qualification before you use AI to scale it. Because I think the example I just gave wasn't like hyperbole. It wasn't like, a exaggeration. Like it's like literally it is reality. I bet if we took this exact call and fed it into Fathom as an example and had used that as the AI transcript, everything I mentioned would fill in medic fields, like just on this call. Like we didn't even have a deal conversation. It was just me giving examples. Like it doesn't know the context and it doesn't know the depth. It just captures what it thinks. And those thoughts are often really high level because salespeople ask high level questions, accept the answers, and move on. And they don't go deep often. And that's one of the big problems with deals is you stay surface level and don't go deep on each of the elements to capture what's relevant and pressure test reality against assumption. And so when you do use AI and you don't have those instilled behaviors and that instilled critical thinking, then yes, AI scales bad behavior. If you already have that fundamental expertise and backbone, then AI can scale the good behavior and the good judgment. But it works both ways because the AI can't do the critical thinking for you. It can just capture the information and categorize it and throw it into a CRM. And it's like, what information do you really want? And so if AI is going to do that, salespeople damn well better be able to say, whoa, hold on a second. Yeah, that's the starting point of metrics. It's the starting point of champion. It's a starting point of decision criteria, but it isn't the end. And it needs, and you as a human need to be able to tell the difference between those things because AI can't. So like, it's that whole thing. Like, no, I'm not saying don't use it, but I'm saying use it highly cautiously and make sure the team actually understands the difference.
But we do know that in most sales teams, right, reps are
Mhm.
not experts at
Yeah.
this time. Okay, so how do we get the reps to become experts? And is there a way to use AI to help them become experts? Like, can we train the AI to become the challenger versus the advocate? I guess.
Again, can you train it to be the challengers of the abbot? Yeah, you can give it that point of view, but then is it still right? Can it do the multi-layer critical thinking? And that's more the angle I'm getting at is you need to train the AI on what the layers look like and be able to have the AI say to you, you're at this point in the layer versus this point in the layer versus treating all the layers as the same. And if you do train the AI appropriately, yeah, you can probably get there. But does it still remove critical thinking? No. Can you use AI to train sellers? You can, in the sense that instead of AI telling you you have something, having AI ask the question of like, did we capture this information? What are we missing? What actions do you think you can take? And then it's more acting like a coach than as the authority on, oh, you've done it or not. And it's more asking sales reps to critically think about their own situation, and maybe helping guide that. Like, sure, like absolutely, that would work better. Um, I still believe AI scales expertise. It also scales the lack thereof. And so my recommendation is always train your team to be experts by real people. And once they demonstrate that level of expertise, AI can absolutely help them scale. And then it will work way better.
What's the mitigation if a team is already using, AI? Like, taking it away would be very difficult, right? Because, it's much more difficult to take something away than give it to them. What do you think the mitigation is if they're already using it? How do we test for critical thinking? Or how do we make sure that the reps are actually doing it and improving on that?
Yeah. And I talk about this a little bit in the book I'm writing, but that's leadership's responsibility. A frontline sales leader should be inspecting the data and have their own. I teach it through color coding, and specific deal criteria and specific rubrics. But whether you use mine, you use Medic, use I call mine deal management, whatever rubric you want to use, I honestly don't care. I try and just solve the problem however you want to solve it. I'm just trying to help. You need a leader needs to have their rubric and needs to have like be able to look at it and say, oh, wait a second, the metrics is filled out, AI is saying it's good.
Yeah.
You as a sales rep are accepting it because you approved it to be in there. But hold on a second. Does that metric matter? Is it believable? Can we improve it? Have we turned it into a business case? Have they like a leader needs to be taking the data and actually applying critical thinking to it. It's kind of like the concept of big data. Like big data was like really, really huge in the early 2000s. And companies built all these data lakes and they started doing all this stuff with like collecting all of their data and centralizing all of their data. But that didn't actually move the needle. They spent tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars trying to solve this problem. But that actually didn't move the needle as much as people really thought it would because we don't actually have a data problem. We have a critical thinking problem. We have an analyzing of the data problem. We have an extrapolating insight from the data problem. And I think the job of a sales leader is to act as that mechanism inside of opportunities where people can collect and approve and put information in the CRM all they want. But leadership should own part of the accepting of the information and critical thinking of the information before it continues to be passed along.
This is an interesting question for me. If the leaders are responsible for that, because I know a lot of leaders are also using AI to help them inspect and coach their reps. Um, let's talk about the mobility of the sales track here, right? Now, if we're saying that AEs need to be really good critical thinkers, and traditionally, for example, you hired a lot of good AEs from the SDR role, where they were building good pipeline and they knew how to qualify leads, and today the reality is since it is an entry level role, most SDRs are using AI to help them you know, draft emails, do their call scripts, et cetera, right? And so I do think that they're not really developing, some of those critical thinking skills that you're referring to that makes them great AEs. And where there's a next, like, do you think we need to hire differently? Like, is it turning different types of functions and roles into salespeople rather than hiring from the SDR role? And then how does that translate into like leadership afterwards?
Yeah. So most people don't realize this. The SDR role was only created inside of software sales.
Okay.
So, like, if I didn't start in software, I started selling sensors for factory automation. I then moved into selling uniforms and floor mats and shop towels for a company called Aramark, and then I moved into advertising technology, and then I moved into pure tech. SDR wasn't a thing until I moved into like, pure modern, like hyperscaler type tech environments. It just wasn't
Right.
like you had
Right.
full cycle A's. And you know where full cycle A's came from? They came from being bartenders.
Mm,
They came from every possible walk of life. And
mm,
so I think we need to stop thinking about like the question of like, can SDR become an AE or do we need to hire differently? You know how I went from being, a kid in a fraternity and a college person that drank a lot and was a bartender and a retail sales employee. I went from that to being a professional seller. I spent years learning how to professionally sell.
mm.
I took lots of sales training. I listened to what my company told me to do and didn't act arrogant and actually like tried their way before I said my way was better. I read every book on sales that I could get my hands on. I sought out mentors that were better than me and just like listened to their calls and like literally sat next to them at their desks and watched what they did. Like I treated the profession seriously. I pretended like I was a professional athlete and I practiced and I role played and I like did the hard things in the work. And so I think any walk of life, whether you're an SDR or anything else, I don't care. When you become an AE, because an SDR is fundamentally different than an AE, and a leader is fundamentally different than an AE or an SDR, these are all fundamentally different roles. When you enter a new, fundamentally different role, you need to start from the bottom and do the things to get good at that role. And that's not just sales. That's like literally anything. If you want to get good at cooking, if you want to get good at soccer, if you want to get good at playing video games, if you want to get good at any job, it doesn't matter. We all start at the same place, which is zero, and we work hard to develop the appropriate skills to get to expert, and we just need to instill those and treat that accordingly.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So treat it. I mean, I think what you're saying is just like sort of any other kind of any kind of role, any kind of function, but regardless of AI, you'd be good at your job if you like take an interest in like developing curiosity for it and developing those skills, right?
Yeah. And you can
Yeah.
use AI to again speed that up by asking it lots of questions and role playing with it and having it do research and then checking its research. And like you can like I'm not saying don't use the tools. Like I wish I had AI when I was, learning all this stuff because it could have helped me, consume information faster. And that's awesome. So use it to help you ramp. But once again, it doesn't replace critical thinking and it doesn't replace curiosity and it doesn't replace the drive to become an expert on something. And like that's what I keep pushing is like regardless of what walk of life, like become an expert on in your profession, in your job, and what you are dedicating your life to, because like that will then pay dividends. And when you learn that, use AI to scale that all day long. Like heck yeah, but you can't use AI to scale what doesn't work. You're just that's stupidity at speed. like like scale it, like use it to scale what works because then that's efficiency and speed.
Okay, last question before I pivot, David. So if you were building a sales org today from scratch, how would you design that introduction to AI? What's the path for AI so that, we develop those skills in sales reps so that they become experts before they can use it? How do they like what kind of tools and things do they use first and then next and then later?
Yeah. So first, I would build the playbook that actually documented all the pieces, the process, what goes into each step of the process, the assets, the decks, the talk tracks. Like I would literally physically document how to do the job in a readable fashion. I would then have salespeople read it and do it. No AI, just do it and develop a level of expertise doing the work. And then once you start doing the work, you can start seeing where it's appropriate to gain efficiency in that work. And then you layer AI on top of it. Now, where this is a caveat, where AI is really good just as it is, it's really good at like transcribing information. Like, absolutely use it for that. It's really good at helping you research. Absolutely use it for that. It can do those things really, really well, at speed. But like, just plugging in cold email and having AI write all your emails and sending 1,000 emails a day using AI, yeah, it's probably a bad idea. Like, don't do that. So like you need to really just think about like what is the tool good at? Do I have enough expertise to judge the output of the work before, before I scale it? Have I gotten good at the job and the behavior just as natural, human? And then like, okay, cool. Where can I find levels of efficiency inside those things? And then that's where, I go from there. So I don't think this needs to be overly complicated. It's just like layering in scale where we already see success. It's when you try and do it the other way around that again you start scaling nonsense.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, use it for information gathering, like research or maybe summarizing, like transcribing calls. And then afterwards, after you've developed like judgment, then you use it for efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, David, tell us a little bit more about your book, actually.
But yeah, so a lot of stuff that I'm talking about, I've written a book on it. So the book's called Deal Management. It's broken up into 3 sections. It starts with, like, high level criteria. So, this is, like, the foundational elements of, like, all deals. Every single deal you'll ever work has some sort of current state, some sort of, desired future state, has a justification, for change, has, key stakeholders, has a buying process, and has competition. And competition isn't, like, named competitors. It's actually, like, status quo. It's um, absolutely, the competitors that are, physically named. But it's also things like, the inertia within the organization or like resources or build versus buy. It's things like that. So how I help people look at deals is like every deal, no matter what you work forever, there will always be a buyer that has some sort of situation, current state going on right now, has some sort of future that they absolutely, want to get to, has some degree of competition, whether it's status quo, named competitor, or build them doing it themselves, has some levels of stakeholders involvement, have some sort of buying process that needs to be captured, has some sort of justification they're going to use to internally make a change. I don't care what you're buying; those things are real. The level of depth inside of them will adjust based on the type of thing you're selling and the level of complexity, but every single deal will have those components. So I help salespeople see the world through those components, and then I help them see how the depth of that information through color coding, red, yellow, green. So now it's not just checkbox, it's literally critically thinking about how deep I've gone. Then it's plays. Okay, cool. I have risk in this area. Here's what I do. And so that's the first section. The second section takes the fundamental common language that we've now established, layers it on top of the sales process, and I introduce things like circular discovery and circular demo that actually forces people to go backwards when new stakeholders engage and forces people to go backwards to get deep enough on information. And then things that no one ever does, like solution alignment and business alignment. The thought process there is like the early stage of the sales process should be gathering information, and the mid stage, you should be aligning and pressure testing the information you've gathered against the buyer requirements before you move to things like proposal and negotiation and close. The problem is people gather information and then jump right to proposal, negotiation, and close and don't actually have the middle section, which is aligning on the solution and the change justification for it. And that's where most deals die. So it's helping people kind of see those things. So kind of my unique insight there is the looping of the early part of the process to get the right level of depth and the right level of alignment afterwards. So that's kind of section 2 is like how to layer section 1 into a process that looks like that. And then section 3 is all about rhythm. So you as a seller, what should you be doing every day, week, month, quarter, year to set yourself up for success? And as a leader, how should you be supporting that inside of your behaviors like one-on-ones and QBRs and forecast calls and deal reviews? And so I try and then install that as operating rhythms because methodology without rhythm is failure. So like that is the essentially the book in a nutshell.
Awesome. I love it. And I especially love like how you started the book with basically it's all about the customer. It's their problem, their needs, their ideal state, versus what the solution provides, which I think is a lot of where we missed out. We go, okay, you have a problem. Here's the solution for that. Versus, alignment on the problem. I love it. And when does it come out?
God, I keep saying 2 weeks. That's like the development cycle at every company. It's like, "Oh, yeah, I'll be ready in 2 weeks."
In 2 weeks.
Right now, the book's finished, and it's, like, never finished because 'cause I'll, like, in the middle of the night, wake up and be like, "Oh my god." But it's theoretically finished. I have it with a publisher. They're doing all, like, the internal layout and design. So, realistically, like, 4 to 6 weeks is kind of what they estimate, but that is only if I stop, making perfection level changes of words and slowing them down. So, we'll see.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to it. And then, last question here. I heard you were an avid chef. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, so, it's funny, how you do anything is how you do everything, so I, started my journey as a chef as, like, just curiosity, and then I layered in curiosity with, like, "Oh my god, how do I become an expert on this?" And so, what I've spent 15 years, like, getting pretty darn good at cooking, and, YouTube videos and, recipe books and all the things. What I do for fun now is I love to travel the world and eat at Michelin star restaurants, and, I do that for the experience, and I it there's something about, um the difference between the eating at a standard restaurant, eating at a Michelin star restaurant related to, um, just the gap between those 2 things on the level of expertise and execution and experience driven and, the nuance and, like, it's the difference between good and perfect, and in that, like, layer is, like, eh, um, it most people can get to, like, good. Like, say as an example, it took you 2 years to get to good. Getting to perfect could take, the next, like, 4 years, and that's, like, the 10% difference in execution taking, like, twice as long as the first 90%. Like, to me, that's what that experience is, and so what I've tried to do is, like, I'll go to restaurants like that, I'll take lots of pictures, and I'll then go home and I'll try and recreate it, and,
Wow.
I try and recreate it because it gives me some, like, taste for, like, the pain and struggle that that individual went through to, like, develop the thing. And so I will say that I've gotten close on some, but never, like, there on any, because, like, it's just I've never been that level of professionally trained and dedicated that level of pain to a mastery when with cooking. I have with sales, but at some point, what I hope is to transition from sales and in retirement, get to that point because I have a lot of love for that and for cooking. So yeah,
What's one dish that was, um, sort of deceptive in, like, how you thought the difficulty was gonna be like, and you were really surprised by how it turned out?
carrots,
Carrots? Okay,
carrots.
tell us more.
So I'd say I'd have this experience twice. One at a restaurant called June, and the head chef there won Top Chef, and
Mm.
another at Blue Hill, which is a multi Michelin star in New York City. And both of them did a multicolored charred carrot um, that I just never knew carrots could taste that good. Like I just like they the sweet, the savory, the just like the full like you just don't understand the flavor of a carrot until they've cooked it for you. It's not like any other carrot you ever have, and that's like one of the reasons why I love going to Michelin restaurants is because like you get they take a very innocent product that you've likely had numerous times throughout your life, and they elevate it to a point where you're just like, how'd you do that? And like that's the part of that's like why I love that because it's that contrast. It's just so cool.
Fantastic. All right, David, thank you so much for joining us. Any last words before we close up here?
No, I appreciate you, the audience, if you've stayed this long listening to my ranting and raving. And if you enjoyed it or you need any help with like, managing deals or anything like that, like I get out of bed every day just to help salespeople sell better. So reach out to me. I'm a resource for you. Always happy to help.
Thank you so much, David. And to our audience, if you tuned in, love this episode, drop us a comment, subscribe. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. Bye, everybody.